Hi everyone and welcome back to the Message Marketing Pod. I'm your host, Christopher Melotti from Melotti Media, and this is a very special episode. I have the amazing Kady Connell from Kady Creative here. She's the founder, director, head honcho marketer of a fantastic marketing company, and they specialize in branding and visuals and all these different diverse executions of marketing. Kady, thank you for joining me on this podcast episode.
Yeah, thank you, Chris. Very warm welcome there. So thanks for
No,
having me.
it's a pleasure and an honor. Do you want to introduce yourself properly, in your own words and how you do things and what you specialize in?
Yeah, of course. So I've had Kady Creative for about 7 years now. And at the very core, we're a branding agency. So, everything kind of comes back to brand. It's great talking to you today because we very much focus on like the visual brand. And obviously you work so much with like the, words and the
messaging, positioning. Yeah.
Exactly. And so, we do branding, we do web design, and we do some marketing, some organic social media, and then a little bit of paid that just kind of adds fuel to the fire. So yeah, really excited to kind of chat to you today. And we work with a lot of small to medium businesses. So people, businesses that are like founder led and that are really just like in kind of like a growth phase. We really get our hands dirty and work with them on like, what are their goals to actually build their business? And it's like very tangible, not just like, wishy-washy branding. It's like, how can we, create a brand and build something that's going to align to those goals? So yeah, really excited to kind of dive into that a bit more today.
And I love that. And look, that's the temptation that a lot of businesses do say around the branding thing is they go, oh, it just sounds all a bit wishy-washy creative. Actually, let's delve into that first. What I want this episode to be on is going back to basics of branding 101, which is some of the FAQs that I'm hearing from a lot of different companies, businesses, the market right now is, my performance advertising is not working as it used to. And what's the solution here? And so we'll delve into that in a second. But I think to start with is, Kady, you raised a good point here, is a lot of people are under the impression that branding is the logo or, like a jingle. And I think that there's a bit of an underappreciation and a misrepresentation of what a brand truly is. And you know what the funny thing is? I find that people know it instinctually, like they see, big brands and brands that they take for granted, like Apple and Samsung, but also like things like Heinz, Sanitarium, and all these huge brands that people see every day. And they know the power that they have because they go, oh, you say one of those brands and you instantly know what they do and how they work and all of that. But I think people underestimate, because it's so prevalent, I think people underestimate how long it takes to get that brand there. Like, if I say to everyone listening today, Kia versus Mercedes-Benz versus Ferrari, those images and positioning that's conjuring in your mind right now for everyone listening and watching is not by accident. No, that's a series of and years of marketing and experiences and all these kind of things that form that jigsaw up in your mind. Yeah. And that's the true essence of branding. Kady, anyone want to jump in on that?
100%. I completely agree with everything you're saying. But I think also sometimes that can kind of like scare people because they're like, oh, well, I'm not like a Kia. Like, I'm just little old whatever. You know what I mean? Like this doesn't apply to me. I don't need to be, you know what I mean? Whereas like, just bring it back to like, even just like a small business. Like an example is like, I decided for Christmas, I wanted to get like an electric bike. I don't cycle. I've never used an electric bike. I had no idea what I was looking for. So I was just like Googling, doing research and trying to find an electric bike brand. And there was one that just stood out to me and like I was like, that's the one that I want to get. And, out of all the brands. So really it's about positioning your brand that like, even if you're not a Kia or you're not a giant brand, but it's like, if someone is doing their research and looking into whatever the industry is that you're in, what is it that's going to make your brand like a no-brainer? And it's a combination of things. Like with that, I went with this company called Lettner Bikes, and it was a combination of things. It was like their website loaded super fast. There was like great reviews on the website. The brand was like cohesive everywhere. It was like I trusted it. It had like money back guarantees on it. It had testimonials that had won awards. So it's like a combination of all these things. Like the copy was on point. The brand, like all the FAQs were on the site. And I guess all of these things, what they did is they built my trust. Yes. And I felt like this is a brand that's going to be reliable and that's not going to let me down. And so when you build your brand, it's not just about all this like, oh, like I'm just going to create a branding and a brand style guidelines and it goes and sits in a drawer forever and I forget about it. It's like, no, how can you bring that to life and make your brand like seem like just like such a reliable and trusted brand. And that's through a whole range of different things, from the copy to the visuals, position,
Yes.
testimonials, like all of these things combine. It's not, and people always say to me, and you probably get the same question, Chris,
I'm
like,
sure I do.
what's more important, the visual or the copy or what? And
Mhm.
it's like, if you go on a first date with someone, what's more important, that they look good or that they can hold a conversation?
Yeah, it's both. It's the
Both.
experience, the memories, the choice of place. Kady, you've nailed it. Not surprised, but for everyone, when I do these podcasts, I always like people to leave with insights and actual tangible value. And what you just heard Kady say was exactly the importance of brand. When you think, oh, brand's a bit wishy-washy, but it's not the truth. It's not the truth. What Kady just said is exactly what happens, and what separates a business from a strong business and a market leader is, and you could be any size, like Kady pointed out, was you don't have to be a Mercedes-Benz in order to have a brand. Like Kady's experience was, she went to the site and everything was consistent. Everything was at her fingertips. Nothing was confusing. Nothing made it hard. Everything was cohesive. And that is what brands need to be today. Everyone does research. No one can contest this, right, Kady? Whenever you search for anything, right? It could be from socks to daycare. You look at, you research, you see what's available, and then you go, okay, I'm happy with that. And then you make a decision. But it's not by chance. It's the colors, the wording, the experience, the convenience, the everything, the user experience and all of that that comes together. And that's what forms what is a reliable, trustworthy brand.
Exactly. And it's like, at the end of the day, people are going to make their mind up about you, and they're going to make a judgment of you. And it's just, are you going to sit back and let them just think whatever they want about you? Or are you going to direct that story? Are you
Yep.
going to actually take the reins and be like, this is who we are, and this is our story, and this is what we look like? And then that's what people leave with. Or are you going to leave it to chance of being like, oh, we'll just see what people think?
Yep. And that's right. And so for people, everyone listening, watching, the insight is check your brand. What is the experience that you are giving your customers? It doesn't matter if you're a one-person band or a multinational company. Is check your brand today. What experience are people getting? And are you leading the narrative? Are you leading that conversation that is creating a great experience so that more people trust you and that more people will then buy from you? And so that leads me to, I'm glad we did that foundational chat about branding. That leads me to what we're seeing right now is that paid advertising is having less of an impact. Now, I want to cut it off at the pass. I'm not saying you shouldn't be doing it, because like we just said, all marketing comes from many different formats and it's all about being present. However, what we're seeing at the moment is this phenomenon, and I don't know, Kady, if you're seeing it, and jump in, but I'm hearing a lot of people in the industry and outside of the industry saying Google AdWords, Facebook AdWords, and LinkedIn ads, and all these kind of things are having less of an impact. And my thoughts on this is, I think that people are a little bit digitally fatigued right now, and they're feeling a bit interrupted and overwhelmed. And I think that this is getting back to the importance of, I saw in Mumbrella an article recently that said marketing needs to shift from push in order to push to movement, which I thought was an interesting concept. Have you heard that, Kady? Have you heard that recently?
No, I haven't actually.
So they're saying, there was a speaker that was saying that marketing needs to, it's not just about awareness anymore. It's about creating a movement, like as in a positive, what they were saying was like a trend, but it's not like a gimmick. It's like creating something that people want to be involved in. Like I'm seeing like a lot of networking companies at the moment that are not just saying, here's a venue. They're saying, here's a work style, like rather than a lifestyle. Here's a work style. Here's something that you can be part of. You don't just buy a backpack. It's a movement.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
what do you think of that, Kady?
Well, it's actually interesting. I think it's because it's coming up to Christmas. I'm doing all this like research of different products at the moment. Yesterday, I went down a rabbit hole. I'm a really big foodie, and I was making a recipe, and it was like, in your Thermomix, pop in this, blah,
I
blah.
love my Thermomix.
I don't have one, but I've heard such good things about it. So I Googled it, and I was like, oh my God, they're like $2,500. It's like, they're making a killing because so many people love them and have them.
Yeah.
But I just couldn't help noticing on the checkout page, it wasn't just like buy now Thermomix. It was like a whole sales page talking about like, not just, it wasn't just focusing on the Thermomix. It was like, you get a consultant that, helps you for the first kind of six to 12 months. You've got like a membership where you've got like, a million like recipes at your fingertips. Like there's a Facebook group. There's all this stuff. It's like, you're not just buying a product, you're like buying into the Thermomix community.
Yeah.
Like is a supportive community that makes you a better cook. That's what you're buying. You're not just buying like a product, you know? And I think they're obviously nailing it, like, because they're doing so well, Thermomix. But like, if you compare that to a lot of the other brands where it's just like, this is the motor size, this is the capacity, and it's like just focusing on like, this is the product. Whereas like Thermomix have like developed this, as you said, like a movement. It's not just the community is built around their product, and that is like what gives it such buy-in. And you'll notice like a lot of brands are steering towards that, where they have that community element, or like if you buy the product, it comes with support, or it comes with, you know, XYZ. There's more to it than just, you know, the basics. Like yeah.
Actually, that's a great example of that. And it's hard because I know a lot of people are thinking about this now going, how do I create a movement? And it's not easy, right? Like it's not, you don't want to pester people. But like you were saying, Kady, is that the Thermomix, they obviously have identified the fact that people want to more than just a machine. They want it to be a celebrate, you know, a culinary celebration, you know, like, and that's, I was so against buying a Thermomix at start. And then when I had that consultant come and show us, and they actually cooked with us. So it wasn't just here's a salesperson. It was a lovely lady who cooked, you know, 3-course meal with us. And therefore that ended up getting me over the line. And now I use it. We've had it for like 5 years now, and I use it every single day, literally every single day. And sorry, I'm not trying to like endorse it now.
But I'm like, maybe I do need it.
But that's what we're talking about here, is that movement where it's like, less ad, more word of mouth. And I know this doesn't sound anything new, but that's the whole point of this podcast episode, is to remind everyone listening and watching that the fact that I think we went through, you know, maybe a couple of years of really glory days of ads, you know, and I'm not saying no to ads. Ads are an important part of a marketing, you know, plan, and you've got to have those ads, and that's part. I'm seeing that over-reliance, and Kady, because you do this per se, so you have probably more of an insight than I do, but I'm just seeing that because I do ads for my brand, and I've also witnessed it where, you know, the years gone by, it was just a guarantee of leads and leads and leads. And now it's like, there's a lot of clutter. There's a lot of unexplained answers. You know, people don't know what Google's going to do every week, or Facebook or LinkedIn seems to be an enigma. Even the LinkedIn like concierges that you work with, even they feel a little bit like, oh, we tried this and that didn't work. We tried this. My instant thought as a marketer would be, it's time to go back to what people gravitate to over the ads, which is the story, the brand, the tangibility of having something that people remember. What do you think, Kady, on this?
It's such
so much to unpack there.
I think there's so much to unpack. So there's kind of 3 key observations that I've kind of noticed. The first being that, number one, ads only work if you have the foundations in place.
Yes.
So a lot of people jump straight to ads, and they're just like essentially throwing money at the problem. You see people do this with staff as well. They're like, oh shit, we're growing, throw money and bring this really senior person in without a strategy. You know, it's the same thing with ads. They just throw money at the problem. And unless you have an offer that converts, messaging that converts, a brand that converts, ads should just add fuel to the fire. It's not not a band-aid solution. And so we actually, our approach, because we're like a brand-led company, we really like see that you have to kind of do things in sequential order. And we only really work with clients on ads once they've got a strong brand. And it's more of like an add-on. Once they've got their branding and they've got organic social media and they've got that trust factor, then we do ads and we see it performs really well. So that's the first thing. Second thing is that I think consumer behavior has changed over the last couple of years.
Good.
And you know, people are checking more. They're doing more research. They're not just seeing an ad and buying, right? Before, in the glory days, it's like they saw an ad that looks amazing, buy. Now it's like they see an ad, then they might ask a friend, then they might research it, then they're going to follow on social media for a bit. So the journey is not linear anymore, it's circular. And so that way, it's also really hard to attribute where your customers have come from. So what we've seen is that people will say, oh my, yeah, we're getting no results from Google, let's just say. And then they switch off their Google ads and they notice a drop in sales. And the reason is, it's like, can't attribute a sale to Google where someone's going on Google, seeing their ad and buying. So they can't attribute it. However, what's happening is people are going on Google, seeing their ad, then following them on social media, then buying 3 months later. And so they're putting that down as like a Facebook ad buy or like an organic buy, when actually it started way back 3 months ago in a Google ad and they just didn't know. So that's the second thing, is just that buyer's behavior.
Yes.
And then the third thing that we're seeing is,
sorry, don't forget that third thing, but I think that's what people need to remember.
Yeah.
I feel like people often say, why doesn't marketing work in a linear way? You know, like, and I think what it is people forget how they are as a very hard only ever, especially for significant purchases. Sorry, don't forget that third thing. We'll come back to, I promise.
Yeah.
Is that I think that people go, oh, I put in $2 into this ad. Why aren't I getting $4 back? And it doesn't work that way. It's all not as cleanly for most people and most industries. It's like you said, it's, someone goes and sees it. Like I've had people that go, oh, I'll go, nice to meet you. And they'll go, I've been following you for like 9-10 months. And it's like they, especially for services, I find, and B2B, is that but this is for everyone, is that people see an ad, they go to your website, they click off, they go see a blog, they chat to someone, and they go, oh my gosh, you're everywhere. And it's that whole like chain of events. And sometimes it's hard to backtrack. Like, I've asked many people and they go, oh, I ended up calling your number because I think I saw some article or blog that you wrote. But chances are they've probably seen 5 or 6 experiences of mine and converted 6 months later. And it's hard to trace that back. Okay, that's a really good point that everyone needs to remember. It's not that easy. It's not so linear.
It's not. The rabbit hole is real. We all do it. We go down these social media rabbit holes and then we're like, wait, I was just looking up, how to update my website and now I'm on like cat videos. Like how did that happen? So it's just, people don't even remember themselves even 5 minutes later how they ended up where they ended up.
Exactly. So that's why like omni-channel marketing is such a big thing. And I know a lot of people go, oh my gosh, it sounds so overwhelming, but it's not about that. It's like, it's about being present in as many channels that your ideal target audience is going to be at, and making sure that you are, like we talked about at the very start, leading the conversation there. I know that people go, oh, you write a lot of articles and things like that. And do they actually work? Of course they do. Because what happens is people read something, then they see me somewhere else, and then they go, oh, wow, he's a real thought leader. And that's what every brand needs to be, is be out there. Yeah. Sorry. So
and you can work smart, not hard, right? Like you can repurpose things on different platforms.
All the time.
Yeah.
Like we cut up these podcasts into multiple different videos. When I write a blog, I voice it as a podcast as well, do videos of them, and it's like you said, it's being present where people want to see you, and like building that trust, like we talked about it originally. So I think that's a really important thing, is don't forget for everyone that it's like you need to build a cluster of marketing executions, not think, oh, well, A leads to B, that leads to C. It's not like that anymore.
Yeah, exactly. It's like a big principle in marketing is recency and frequency. It's like, how frequently are they seeing you and how recent do they last see you? And that's what sticks in their mind. And sometimes people don't even read the article or watch the video, but they just see you and that's enough just to get that reminder,
Exactly.
So it's worth doing. So the third thing is just actually kind of similar to that is, you obviously do a lot of this, you test, you do things, you just try different things out. Always. And I think people just are like, they take it maybe too personally, or they, something doesn't work and it's like they give up way too easily, and it's like anyone that has ads that are performing, it's because they test. I was even watching yesterday, that guy from A Diary of a CEO, Stephen Bartlett.
Yes.
Yeah, talking about his podcast, he changes the YouTube cover every hour.
Whoa.
Every hour of his podcast to test. That's how much he tests to see what ones are resonating, what captions are resonating. That's the length that he goes to be like the top of the charts on podcasts. Is like he has a whole team testing every hour. Like people don't become successful by accident. It's not accidental. They are strategically testing things, and even if they've got something that's working, they're not just sitting on their laurels being like, this is working. They're like, they know this is going to be dead in about 2 weeks. What am I going to do next? Yeah.
I think that's a really important part of marketing, is that test, because in the end, humans are humans, and we're irrational, in terms of how we act, and we shouldn't be surprised because we're all customers and B2B customers and B2C customers ourselves, and no one ever just goes, oh, I need that service. Like when you need a consultant, you don't just pick the first one. You interview a few, you talk to a few, you have a look and see what's trusted, look at their testimonials, look at their pages, all these kind of things. And you verify, what they call digitally interview them. And I think that that's what people need to remember in terms of marketing and branding, is that prominence, and consistency, clarity, all of those things need to be present, because that's how it works. I can't believe he tests that much. That's amazing. And what the funny thing is, you'd probably ask him what works, and I'm sure that there are trends, but I'm sure he probably thinks whatever happens next. He's probably not thinking, oh, it's this blue color. He's probably just like, whatever works next.
Exactly. And he even does say that. He said, if you ask him working on LinkedIn, I can tell you right now, if you ask me in 3 months, I'd have no idea, but in 3 months time, I'll know, you know? So it's like, it's not like, oh, this has worked the last week or two. I've cracked the code, done. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Unfortunately, I mean, that would be nice.
Yeah, but the world moves too fast today. So how do we avoid people getting overwhelmed here? Like
Yeah.
everyone who's listening, because they're people probably listening going, oh my gosh, this all sounds a bit too hard.
Yeah.
I mean, Kady, what would you recommend for people right now listening or watching
Yeah.
who want to improve or solidify their brand in the right way?
I think just, yeah, just approach it with like that real testing approach. And you can look at it and be overwhelmed, but you can also look at it and be like, wow, this is like really useful, interesting information.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And it's like, how lucky are we that we can get these insights so immediately? And the other thing, not to be like too overwhelmed about it, it's not like you need to test and you need to completely throw your strategy out the window and do another one. Like sometimes we'll test a landing page and there'll be 2 words difference between
Yeah.
like the headings, and that makes a big difference. It's like literally just like, you know, to bring it back to a really tangible example, like let's say they're posting on LinkedIn and they're doing LinkedIn content.
Yeah.
Just at the end of each week, just look at the analytics, look at the stats, see what's performing well. And if you're doing that every week, you'll start to see patterns, and you'll be like, oh, every time I post about, you know, a bit about my personal life and my family, people really respond. So it's like, okay, I'm going to post a few more of those. Or every time I do a video, it seems to get much more, you know, awareness.
Yes.
Okay, maybe I'll do more video. And then, you know, after 2 months, videos aren't performing so well. Your text ones are doing better. And it's like, okay, I'll switch back to text for a while. So it doesn't need to be like scary, overwhelming. Oh my God, I need to become this like marketing machine.
Yeah.
It's just about like approaching it with like that mindset of like, I'm just going to continue to iterate all the time rather than being like, I need to find the solution.
Yep, I couldn't agree more, Kady. Like, and I think that's the main insight I want people to take away right now is take a deep breath, right? It's not about overwhelm. What it is about it's baby steps. I feel like I always said to myself when I first started, I always used to compare myself to businesses that were like 10 to 12 years ahead of me. And that I used to get really frustrated because I was like, how come they have this and how come they have that and how come I don't have it? And what I found was it was better to be inspired by them rather than jealous or envious. And so what I suggest is, you know, if you're not on every channel, start with one, right? Or start with 2 and grow from there. And then, like Kady said, is use like amplify your efforts, you know, so you don't have to just spend all this time creating all these new things, like use different channels. And like I was saying, you know, write a blog, then I voice it, then I video it. Right. These are just ways to get the most, like working smarter, not harder about, you know, expanding it. And I also think starting from ground zero is always the best. Like, for instance, take the time to define what your brand is or what you want your brand to be. So many brands, I mean, I do this as a service, right, where we workshop and develop brand messaging, but so many brands don't even have that. You know, like we've got Julian who knows a bit, and we've got Sam who knows a bit, and we've got, you know, Casey who knows a little bit differently. And so there's this real disconnect internally with what the brand should be. And so then they wonder why their customers can't understand it. Whereas it's like starting with that, who are we? What's our vision? What's our mission? What's our goals? What do we value? What's our process? What do we stand for? What's our difference? All of those kind of things should be clearly documented so that everyone can get buy-in and get on board. And then rolling it out, you know, like speaking in a particular tone, using a particular way of connecting and communicating. It's clarity when it comes to brand, isn't it?
100%. And it's just about reinforcing that message. Like once you know what you want to be known for and what you want to kind of, be speaking about in your content, it's like, how do we continue to reinforce that message just in new ways? So it's not about like, oh my God, I have to come up with like 17 different like things to talk about. You want to be known for kind of 2 or 3 things. That's it.
Correct.
But how can you do it in different ways that like, you know, are just a little bit thought-provoking or things like that. So it's not about like, and then you keep testing that. So it's not about having to kind of like do a million things. It's more about doing 2 or 3 things well, but like really refining them each time. You're like, think of it like if you were making a recipe. Okay, so if it was like someone learning to cook, it's not about like trying to learn 500 recipes. Like that, it would be overwhelming. It's like picking 3 recipes, and each time you make it, you like try a little bit more flour this time. Next time, oh, we're going to try like a different type of flour. Next time, 2 eggs instead of 1. Do you know what I mean? Like that's kind of what we're trying to do, is like perfect that craft, not like spread ourselves too thin. So if you kind of just change that mindset, and also it's like progress over perfection.
Yeah. Oh, that was good. Yes. Progress over perfection. I like that. It's so key. I think we've given people heaps at this point. So well, look, key insights, as I was saying, is yes, sure. Different forms of marketing go through waves, right? Right now we're seeing that performance advertising struggle a little bit in terms of results. But Kady, as Kady said, is remembering that it's not just the ads that are working for you. And so, if your ads are suffering a little bit, it's not just like, oh, okay, well, they are terrible. It might be that people are finding other ways, but it's also about expanding your channels, expanding your diversity when it comes to marketing. Look at things that you haven't done before, capitalizing on what you're doing really, really well, strengthening some of those channels, all of those kind of things, and getting back to the branding basics, like we talked about earlier, creating a movement, whatever that looks like in your space. And you don't need to, create a cult or anything like that. The idea is to think, what is it that people are actually valuing today? And it's all of that, it's more than just a brand. Like Kady did with the product and the Thermomix. It's not just about, okay, here's an exchange. It's like building people's trust and giving people a great experience. Kady, anything you want to sort of part before we finish?
No, I think, as you said, we covered a lot. I think there's a lot that we both covered there, and wouldn't want to like overwhelm anyone, but anyone can feel free to reach out to URI if they have, any further questions. And hopefully that was helpful and valuable. And just, to keep trying, and just remember, like, no one has it like figured out, even these experts. Like, look at Stephen, the guy from the Diary, the CEO. It's like, if you're comparing yourself to people, just remember they have tested like the shit out of everything,
Yeah. And I think that's actually, that's one of the best insights there. Was it's not an exact science, it's not maths. So we need to stop beating ourselves up and going, oh my gosh, it's this or it's that or the other. Like, we're all learning. We're all, especially in today's world with AI and all these things that keep changing so fast, is don't beat yourself up on not being an expert or anything like that. It's learn, grow, change, evolve, build from the foundations. So thank you, Kady, for joining me today. So it's Kady O'Connell from Kady Creative. So it's Kady Creative.com. If you want to have a chat with her and her team about the brand, I'm looking forward to working more with Kady in the very near future. So thank you very much, Kady. And thank you everyone for watching and listening to this podcast in a special episode of the Message Marketing Pod. I'm your host, Chris and Melotti from Melotti Media, and I'll see you in the next episode. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Chris.